Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the story about Naruto. What if Naruto was the second Juubi 10 Tales Part 4? Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please do support for more awesome content and also hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends and also support the creator of this fanfic. I have created many playlists, check it out in the channel. So let's start the video. Each match will be 2-on-2, except for one which will be a 3-way. Now will everyone except Inuko and Yuzuka and Yugito Nai leave the floor and go up to the balcony? Hey Jeko said as he called out the first battle. Everyone left the lower floor, leaving only the two girls who were about to fight. This isn't good. Yugito is older and more experienced than Inuko-chan. Plus Yugito has the Nibi in her, so that gives her a massive boost in battle in both chakra and stamina. Naruto thought to himself as he watched the two girls who were staring off at the moment. I hope you don't get hurt by Inuko-chan. Naruto thought sadly. He wanted her to win, but he had fought Yugito during the war, and she had been a pain with her long nails and fire jutsu. Yugito sniffed the air, then pinched her nose. You smell horrible, just like a dog. Yugito taunted her opponent, who growled back at her, showing her more wild side. And you smell like old tuna, cat. Inuko said back as she and Akamaru were ready to fight the Nibi Jinchuriki. Ready? Hey asked the two, who nodded their response. Fight, he said as he jumped out of the way. Yugito was quick to act and charged at Inuko with her nails extended. Take this, she said as he tried to cut Inuko, but the Inuzuka heiress was able to jump out of the way of the attack. Inuko smirked confidently. Is that all you have? Let's go Akamaru. Jutsuga, she called out as both her and Akamaru started spinning rapidly and charged at Yugito, who jumped out of the way with a back flip. Both Inuko and Akamaru stopped their attack before they could crash into the floor. You're too slow. Kaiten Hineko, Yugito called out as she exhaled a large cloud of ash which took the shape of 10 small cats with glowing red eyes. The 10 ash cats ran towards Inuko, who was still smirking confidently. Is that all? Suga, Inuko yelled as she tunneled towards the cats at a fast speed. No, Inuko-chan. Turn away, Naruto yelled at his girlfriend, who didn't hear him in time and collided with ash cats. Each one of the cats exploded in ash and were drawn into the Tsuga. Inuko's attack went wild before she crashed into the ground, screaming in pain as the burning hot ash burned her skin on contact back. Because of her spin, her entire body was completely surrounded in the ash. Inuko's screams could be heard piercing the ash cloud from within. Naruto acted quickly and jumped into the cloud and quickly absorbed the ash using the pre-top path. Thankfully, since Yugito was a Jinchuriki, he could absorb the jutsu without any drawbacks. Everyone's eyes widened when the cloud was completely absorbed into Naruto's body. Can I absorb jutsu? Killer Bee and Darui thought in shock that someone possessed such a skill. They knew that they needed to report this to A quickly. Someone with such a power couldn't be let go without them knowing about it. The match is over, Naruto said in a stern voice as he looked down at Inuko's unconscious body. Her clothes had been nearly burnt off and her skin was covered in bright pink burns from the ash. He was thankful that Yugito was a Jinchuriki, since that meant that his chakra had traces of Biju chakra which he could absorb. If it weren't for that, he would have had a lot more of a problem, since he wasn't completely used to draining non-Biju chakra. Hiruzen nodded as motion for Heiei to end the match. The special Jounin nodded as well. Winner, Yugito Nai of Kumo. Medics, the Konoha native called as two men in medical outfits came out carrying a stretcher. Naruto created a seal-less shadow clone and sent it with the medics to watch over Inuko. Naruto walked back up to the upper floor, but as he passed the Kumo teams he stopped for a second. The little cat did well, but she is obviously above Genin level. I mean, with her current age and the Nibi, she should be at least a Jonin. Wouldn't you say so, Hachi-chan? Naruto said with a small smirk to Killer Bee, who now had white eyes hidden behind his goggles. Which one? Bee asked the blonde. None, Naruto said mysteriously as he walked away. He still wanted to keep his role as Juubi a secret, but intimidating others was fun at times. He must have gained that trait after absorbing the Bijuus during the war. But that has nothing to do with my question. I repeat, why is a Jonin level Kunoichi in an exam made for Genin? Naruto asked with narrowed eyes. It was an order from the Sandaime Raikage before his death, Darui said to the blonde, who nodded before walking away back to his team. Darui turned to B. Did the Hachibi say anything about him? The Raikage's right-hand man asked. Only that he was very powerful, we should be careful. Killer Bee rapped badly, causing every Kumo ninja around him to sweat drop. Do you hear that? Amoy asked his teammates nervously. What if he's really a massive monster made up of all 9 Bijuas fused into one? The blonde Kumo shinobi said, as he thought about the absolute worst outcome, which happened to be correct. Karui grew a tick mark and hit her fellow Kumo shinobi over the head. Idiot, how would that be possible if Yugito Ni had the Nibi and B-sensei had the Hachibi? Karui yelled at her teammate who was rubbing the bump on his head. Samui was looking at Naruto with a slight blush. He's cool, she thought to herself as she looked back up at the electronic board to see who would be battling next. Tenta next to Mari. The two girls walked down to the lower floor and prepared to fight. The fight, however, had been harsh for Tenten since she got the worst opponent for her, since all her weapons which she threw down at Tamari were blown away by the wind user's attacks. No matter what trick she tried to use against Asuna Kunoichi, they all failed. The battle would have ended with a brutal hit to Tenten's spine if it weren't for Guy stepping in time. Well, that was less than entertaining. Naruto said with a large frown as he was forced to re-watch the battle that had happened all those years ago in his home dimension, but he was happy that this time Guy was able to stop. Kazumi nodded slowly. She still didn't know what to think of Naruto, yet since he was easily over Jonin level, if what he had shown back on Genin test and the wave mission proved. She didn't know whether to be cautious of him or feel admiration for the blonde, but she could help but felt a small jump in her heartbeat when he looked her in the eyes. It was as if he understood her pain. Her pain from losing so many close to you, yet he was able to show his face to the world while she kept it hidden since the death of her father at his own hands. By order of the Hokage, the next battle, will be between Naruto Namikaze of Konoha and C of Kumo, as well as Akihiko of Kumo in a 2-on-1 battle. Hayate announced, much to the surprise of everyone there, since they didn't know that the Hokage would make his own shinobi fight against 2 others from a different village. Well, everyone but Naruto, who was excited about being able to fight. Naruto smirked at this. Of course the old man would make him have a 2-on-1 battle, but he was the goddamn Juubi, and there was no way he was going to lose to 2 genin. Good, Naruto said as he jumped over the rail and landed on the lower floor. Who do you think will win? Yugito asked her fellow Kumo shinobi who watched as her 2 teammates walked down to the battle floor. Is that a rhetorical question? Karui asked with a raised eyebrow as she looked at her friend. Of course C and Akihiko are going to win the battle. For one thing, it's 2-on-1, and 2, we're Kumo shinobi, and if what we saw from your battle they aren't that strong. Karui said arrogantly, getting glares from every Konoha ninja for insulting them. The Konoha kid will win, you can see it in his grin. Killer Bee rapped his thoughts to his students. I agree with B-sensei. I believe that he will win this battle. Samui said coldly as she looked at the lower floor where all 3 fighters were getting ready to battle. What? How can you say that, Samui? Where is your pride? Karui yelled at the busty Kunoichi who looked at her from the corner of her eyes. I am simply stating what I believe will happen. Your reaction was so not cool. Samui said coldly as the proctor stepped forward. Naruto vs and Akihiko. Ready? Hayate asked the 2 sides, who nodded. Fight, he said as he jumped back. For a while no one made a single movement as the 2 sides studied each other. This moment was broken by Naruto, who smirked and slammed his palm on the ground, causing a large plume of smoke to erupt outward. Jakarahanto. Naruto yelled from within the smoke cloud as 4 black and gold blurs shot out from the cloud. 2 went for each Kumo shinobi, who tensed as they motioned to dodge but were unable to do so before 2 jackals bit down on each other's shoulders. Ah! Both screamed in pain as the sharp teeth of the canines dug deep into their flesh. Naruto smirked lightly as he vanished in a blur of speed. With each passing second, several new cuts appeared on either C or Akihiko before Naruto reappeared in front of them. The 4 jackals vanished in plumes of smoke as Naruto turned back to the 2 genin. Is that all you have? Naruto asked in a broad tone, which enraged Akihiko and made C stand on edge. Both their bodies were losing blood fast, and the cuts and teeth wounds were burning like no tomorrow. Dai Konoha scum! Akihiko screamed out in outrage as he performed hand signs at a speed which the other Konoha genin except Naruto and his team could keep track of. Rate in false darkness. He yelled out his jutsu before firing a spear of lightning shot out towards Naruto, who vanished and reappeared behind him with his hand on Akihiko's head. Naruto could feel all the sins the genin had performed from the beginning of his career. He could forgive killing to protect your village, but this boy had killed people just because they refused to serve him a free meal. He had raped young girls all over Kaminari no Kuni and a few other countries while on missions. He had robbed people who had done nothing wrong. He was utterly despicable. I believe it is you who shall die, Naruto said in a dark tone. This was the kind of person who held the world back from peace, and he would make sure that he would never do anything to bring darkness to the world. Human path, Naruto said silently as he ripped out Akihiko's soul. Now, while normally he would absorb the soul and learn everything that the boy had learned over the years, he didn't want the memories of all the crimes the Kumo ninja had committed to be imprinted onto his mind, so he did the next best thing and destroyed the soul into small blue glowing particles that faded into nothingness. Everyone stood silent as Akihiko's body slumped lifelessly forward onto the floor. None could believe what the blonde had just done. They all looked down at Naruto with a hint of fear, with the exception of the team and who had seen him do it before. Kitten, you have to make sure that you never anger this man. I was unsure of it before, but I know now that he just used the power of one of the 6 paths. Nibi warned her container about how dangerous Naruto was. Then Yugito started to hear perverted giggles in her head, but it would never hurt trying to nab him for yourself. That's it, kitten. From now on your mission is to get into his pants and give me a litter of kittens. The two-tailed Biju proclaimed from within Yugito, causing her to blush. Nibi. I don't even know the guy, and he just killed off one of my teammates. Why would I even think about going out with him? Yugito screamed back mentally at her tenant, who just giggled as she cut off the connection. Stupid perverted cat. Yugito signed mentally. While this was going on, B and the Hachibi were having their own conversation. B, I suggest that you try to befriend that blonde and gain him as an ally. What he used was called the human path. It is one of the 6 paths that the Rakuto Sennin could use, and when there is one path, the other 5 are sure to be as well. This body may very well be the reincarnation of the sage for all we know. I also sense the power of the Biju within him, but it feels like all 9 mixed into one with some additional foreign chakra mixed in. I fear this boy man may be the next Juubi no Kishin. The 8 Tails warned his container. For once, B was lost for words. He had just been told that this genin could be the next sage of 6 path, as well as the next 10 tails. This was way too much to even comprehend at the moment. He would have to tell his brother this in secret. Gaia, on the other hand, was holding her head as Shukaku jumped around in her head, screaming about how her father had returned to it at last and how she should take his blood for it. Father's back. Father's back. Father has finally come back. And mother wants his blood, Gaia. I want his blood for me so that I will never be without him again. Do it. Do it now, the Achibi screamed psychotically out to its container, who was trying to hold back the wave of bloodlust that the Biju was giving off. Eventually the pressure stopped as Shukaku got tired and retreated back into the depths of her mind. What did mother mean when she called this man father? Gaia thought to herself as she held her head in pain, which got her worried looks from her team. Back at the battle, C had quickly used a healing jutsu to fix himself back into battling condition and threw a dozen shuriken at Naruto. The blonde Juubi didn't even bother dodging and used his Asura path to harden his skin into metal. To everyone it seemed as if C had finally gotten a hit on Naruto, but Kazumi had heard about his battle with Haku and how her senbon bounced off of his armored skin, so she wasn't too worried. Her prediction came true when the shuriken fell onto the ground without a speck of blood on them. The blonde-haired Kumo shinobi smirked and pulled out a kunai with an explosive tag attached and threw it at the one-armed demon. Naruto smirked as he blurred out of existence and reappeared high over C. It's over, C, I win. Jinten Sonic Downfall, Naruto shouted as he became a blur as he shot down at C and heel dropped his head into the ground, but Naruto restrained himself as to not cripple or kill C, since unlike the other Kumo shinobi, he had committed any crimes against humanity. The attack kicked up a ton of dust which formed into a brownish-colored cloud around the 2 remaining fighters. Everyone waited with bated breath as the dust cloud started to thin out to the point where they could see the silhouette of a male standing over another male. It was clear to everyone that Naruto had won the match hands down. He had been able to kill one of his opponents by removing the soul and then followed by knocking out C. The next match will be the Proctor said as he looked up at the board. Ino Yamanaka vs Karui of Kumo Heiate said before he started to cough once again. Naruto really felt bad for him, but he wasn't a medical professional and didn't have enough control over his power to be sure that his energy wouldn't hurt or kill him. He never did learn how he died. The two kunoichi walked down the steps and met each other on the ground. Karui gripped the handle of her sword as she got ready to fight the other genin. Both kunoichi stared at each other as if studying everything they could from the other. Hayate looked at the two before raising his hands. "Fight!" he yelled as he jumped back to not get caught in the middle. Karui made the first move and charged at Ino with her sword now completely drawn. Back in the academy, Ino would have been screwed right now because she had never trained and just focused on her looks, but Naruto had told her that he would only go out with her if she actually trained and became a real kunoichi. From that day on, she had been training with Naruto every other weekend and with her team during the week. Ino ducked under the slash and performed a quick genjutsu, making her invisible to anyone without a jutsu. Karui looked all around for Ino but was completely unable to find her. However, her trained kunoichi instincts told her to jump out of the way. Lucky for Karui, she was right, as Ino appeared over the spot she was just in and smashed her fist into the ground, leaving a decent-sized crater for a genin. Sarutobi couldn't help but look at Naruto, who was smirking at Ino's display of strength. "So you taught her Tsunade-chan's strength-enhancing technique," Sarutobi thought to himself as he looked down at the fight, which was getting intense now. Karui kept up her assault on Ino, who used her natural flexibility to dodge every single attack that Karui was launching, no matter how good Karui was with the sword. "Stand still," Karui said through gritted teeth. The blonde just wouldn't stand still long enough for her to hit her. "Why would I do that? I have a love life unlike your flat chest, and I'm sure my boyfriend wouldn't like it if I was all scared up," Ino said with a large smirk as she saw Karui get angrier with each failed swing, and the flat chest comment and bringing up the fact that she was single only helped to make her even more enraged. "Shut up," the feisty Redeed yelled as she charged lightning chakra through her sword. Ino smirked at how angry Karui had gotten from her teasing. "Sorry, flat chest, but I think it's about time to end this," Ino said as she jumped back and performed the hand signs for her family's trademark technique. "Shintention no jutsu," she said as her body fell limp on the ground. Karui froze in place as she felt Ino's mind taking over her very body. She tried with all her might to fight back Ino's consciousnesses, as shown by her gritting teeth, but in the end she lost control to Ino. "Proctor," Karui said as she turned to Hayate while holding a kunai to her throat. Karui gave up, the Redeed said. "Winner, Ino Yamanaka," Hayate said to the crowd, who clapped at the performance. Ino released a jutsu and went back into her own body. Karui's eyes widened as she looked around, seeing Ino on the ground. She thought this was her chance, but was stopped by B before she could do anything. "Karui-chan, stop your assault, it's pointless since you already lost," B said in a rap to his genin. "What? How?" Karui asked frantically. Killer B then had to go on and explained the end of the battle to her as they walked back to where the other Kumo ninja stood, while Ino walked back to her team. "Damn it," she said as tears streamed down her cheeks. She had come so far in these damn exams, only to forfeit against her will. "You know you shouldn't cry over spilled milk, right?" Naruto said as he walked over to the group. Unknown to the genin other than Naruto, Killer B tensed when the blonde had walked over to his group once again. Any being who could make the Hachibi feel uneasy also made him uneasy. The only ones who had done that before were the third Raikage, who he respected, his brother A when he had cut off one of his horns, the Kyuubi no Kitsune, Hashirama Senju, and now this boy. Karui glared at him. "What are you here to brag about how one of your village's ninjas defeated another one of ours?" she yelled at the blonde demon, who raised his hands up in defense. Naruto shook his head. No, I just came here to tell you that you did good out there," Naruto said honestly to her. Seeing that he wasn't going to make fun of her, she lessened her glare, but still had a lesser one on. "I must say that you must be quite skilled in Raiten manipulation to be able to use it in conjunction with a blade. But I have to ask, what effect were you going for? Because from what I saw, you were using it in a way which would paralyze your opponent, but I believe you were looking more for an effect which would boost your piercing power and speed, right?" Naruto continued. Karui raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, I was going for extra speed." "How did you know?" Karui asked the blonde, who smiled kindly back at the dark-skinned girl, which blushed a bit. "I trained a bit with Raiten, a bit, and from a few experiments I figured out that the way you conduct the electricity through your sword affects the result you get. For example, if you let your electricity run wild within the blade of your sword, you'll get an electrocution effect, while if you keep it controlled and spread evenly throughout the entire sword, you'll get more of a paralyzing effect, which is what you were getting." Furthermore, if you concentrate your lightning going up your blade and towards the tip will increase your piercing effect. And lastly, if you concentrate the lightning on the sharpened edge of the blade, it will increase the speed which the sword can cut through air and will give it a better ability to cut through armor and flesh. Naruto explained to the group of genin the theory behind using lightning chakra in their swords. The jaws of the three dropped when they heard everything Naruto had to say. Even Killer Bee was a little surprised with all that the blonde knew. The next match will be between Shinobi and Shikamaru Naruto. The proctor said. I give up. There is no point in me fighting, since I am unable to put all of Shino's bugs under my Kajime no Jutsu, and even if I got Shino under my control, his bugs would still be active and would swarm me the second I catch Shino. Shikamaru said with his eyes closed as he leaned back against the wall of the building. Hayate nodded at the reasoning, winner Shinobi. Next match will be between Sayori Uchiha and Kankuro of Suna. The proctor called out. Sayori jumped over the rails, while Kankuro did the same from where he was standing. Fight! Hayate yelled as he began the battle between the Konoha and Suna ninja. Sayori started the battle by performing a series of hand signs before Kaiten Great Fireball Jutsu. She yelled as she exhaled a large fireball from her mouth which went searing towards the Suna shinobi who jumped out of the way. Sayori didn't give Kankuro a chance to counter her. She pulled out 6 kunai and threw them at the puppet user. Kankuro, seeing the weapons coming at him, pulled out his own kunai and used it to block the 6 projectiles before he threw it at Sayori. The female Uchiha back flipped backwards to avoid the kunai. Kaiten Phoenix Flower Jutsu. She said before she exhaled a barrage of small fireballs at Kankuro. The Suna genin saw this coming and substituted himself with a log which came out of nowhere. Sayori ducked as several senbon flew over her head. From the purple drops coming off the needles, after they hit the wall she assumed that they were poisoned. Seeing that Kankuro was behind her, she turned and charged at him. Once she was close enough, she landed a powerful punch to Kankuro's stomach, only for 2 sets of arms wrapping her. Before Kankuri could do anything, she substituted herself with a log before several blades coming out of Kankuro's chest tripped right through the log. So Kankuro used the old puppet trick, huh? Good thing Sa-chan managed to escape in time. Naruto thought to himself as he watched the battle. He was really impressed with how Sayori was handling the battle so far, but that was without Kankuro using his puppets. Let's see how to handle him now that he has his puppets out. Sayori was already stronger than Sasuke was back when he was in Konoha. The bundle on the back of the puppets unraveled to reveal Kankuro. Well, I thought that last trick I set up was going to beat you, but since you were able to escape it, I guess I'll have to do it. Kanyakuro said as he smirked as he held Crow in front of him with his chakra strings. Let's see you try. Sayori said as she activated her Sharingan before she charged in at Kankuro, who sent Crow at her. Crow's hands turned into 4 large knives which Kankuro used to try and impale the Uchiha, who jumped to the side and lashed out with a kick to the side of Crow's head. Crow went flying, but Kankuro stabilized it in mid-air and brought it towards himself just in time to block another physical attack from Sayori. Before the black-haired girl was able to pull away, Crow managed to hit her with about a dozen poison senbon. Sayori fell to her knees as she felt the poison starting to circulate throughout her body. Give up now, and I'll give you the antidote. Kankuro said with a wide smirk as he saw her struggling to breath with the poison spreading throughout her body. I will end not give up. I have to become as strong so I can beat him. Sayori panted out as she stood back up and glared at the sand shinobi. She could feel the dark power of the curse mark trying to enter her chakra stream, but the seal that Naruto had put on her was blocking it. Come on. Just use my power. A dark voice yelled in her head, shouted at her. The voice sounded almost exactly like hers, only it had a vengeful and dark undertone. You know you want my power. It's the only way you can win. The voice continued to push her to use the power of the curse mark and break the seal that Naruto had put on her. No. Naruto said to never use the power of the curse mark. Sayori yelled back at the evil voice within her head, who laughed back at her like she had just said the funniest thing ever. Ha! That hypocrite told you not to use my power? His chakra is almost identical to my own, only far more potent. He isn't even human from what I can tell from his chakra. On top of that, his chakra is far more malicious than anything I could ever create. He is just scared of what you could become. He fears you because he knows you can become someone who can kill him. Dark Sayori said to her host. Sayori felt herself fade from the real world and appeared on a plain with black grass and a blood-red sky with a red moon overhead. "Where am I?" Sayori asked as she looked around the plain. There was absolutely nothing but black grass and the red sky. "This is your mind, Sayori-chan," Dark Sayori said as she phased into existence in front of Sayori. She looked exactly like herself, only that she had paler skin than she did and had yellow snake-like eyes. She wore a black robe that wrapped around her figure. Around her neck was a choker with Kishin Fujin on it. "Come on. Take this collar off of me, and I'll give you the power you need to beat Itachi," Dark Sayori said to the Uchiha, who looked at the seal with interest. "Is it worth it? Is power worth betraying Narukun's trust?" she thought to herself as she took a step towards Dark Sayori. "He's holding you back, Sayori-chan. He's trying to weaken you so that you never betray the village. He wants you to be weak. Release this seal, and I'll give you everything you've ever wanted. I'll give you the power you need to avenge your clan and bring it into a new age of power." She continued to tempt as Sayori slowly walked toward her before she gripped the collar. Sayori's eyes had a thick haze to show how influenced she was. "Do it," Dark Sayori said with a wide grin as she felt Sayori tugging on the collar. However, before Sayori could completely rip the seal off, a massive claw smacked Dark Sayori away. Sayori's eyes snapped wide open as the haze that had overtaken her. Sayori looked up to see a massive monster with 10 gigantic tails. The monster was almost completely black, with the only exception being the one massive eye and its long tongue. It had a human-like torso covered in black scales. It had several spikes coming out of its back and head. "What the hell are you?" Sayori shouted as she took a few steps back, away from the massive monster. Dark Sayori's laugh echoed from where she was sent flying towards. The dark version of Sayori appeared in front of Sayori. "Oh, you don't know? That's your dear lover Naruto's true form." Sayori's eyes widened when she heard this as she looked up at the monster. "No way, there is no way that Naruto could be that thing," she thought to herself in fear. Was Naruto really lying to them all and was a monster in the form of a human? "Naru-kun," Sayori said with a stutter. The massive beast turned to her with a depressed expression. "Sa-chan, I'm sorry that I hid this from you, and Naru-chan, I didn't know how the two of you would react," the massive monster said in a booming voice that made the entire world rumble. Sayori could hear the sincerity in the monster's voice and knew that the monster was actually Naruto, like her clone had said. "So that's really you, Naru-kun?" Sayori asked as the massive beast lowered its head so that it was face to face with Sayori, who was looking into his massive single eye, who was filled with sadness and anguish. "Yes, a long time ago I had to seal away the beast called the Juubi within myself, but doing this turned me into this. I am Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, Nidaime Juubi no Kishin," the Juubified Naruto said to Sayori, who was deep in thought. "I'll explain more to both you and Naru-chan back after the preliminaries," Naruto said before he turned to Dark Sayori, who was smirking at her victory and proving that Naruto was a monster. "What are you looking at?" she said with a bit of humor filling her voice. Naruto narrowed his eyes. "My seal may not have completely sealed you away because of how tired I was, but that doesn't mean I can't suppress you even further now that inside Sayori's mind." Dark Sayori's eyes widened as Naruto picked her up with one of his massive clawed hands. "Suffering in the Tsukuyomi," Naruto said as the 9 Tomo in his eyes spun wildly around the 3 inner circles. Dark Sayori faded as she was sent deeper into Sayori's subconscious, where she would be stuck in the Tsukuyomi until it wore off. And since Naruto was at full power inside of Sayori's mind, it would be a long time before she would awaken from the nightmare Naruto was going to put her through. Looking back at Sayori, Naruto frowned. "I've suppressed her completely now. She will no longer try and influence you anymore for a few months at most. Please don't hate me for what I am," Naruto said before his eyes started to spin once again as he sent Sayori and himself out of the mindscape. Real world. Sayori took in a deep breath as her consciousness re-entered the real world. She hesitated for a second, giving Kankuro to send his puppet at her. Sayori jumped out of the way. Her body was still burning from the poison flowing through her bloodstream. Looking up at Naruto from the corner of her eye, "I don't hate you, Naru-kun," she thought before she decided to finish the battle. Using a shunshin which surprised many jonin, she appeared in front of Kankuro and landed a strong kick, sending the sand shinobi up into the air. Jumping over Kankuro, Sayori landed a massive kick, sending the shinobi smashing down into the ground. Seeing that Kankuro wasn't going to get back up, the proctor called the matchmaking Sayori the winner before Sayori fell back because of the poison in her bloodstream. 4 medics came in and took the two to the hospital in the tower. Naruto secretly made a shadow clone and sent it after Sayuro under the form of a small mouse. Next up was Narumi and Neji, which Naruto thought would be a good battle, even if he was sure that Narumi would win, but a good battle nonetheless. The two fighters jumped down to the ground and waited for Hayate to start the battle between the two. Neji had already activated his Byakugan and was in his gentle fist stance. As the fight started, Neji charged at Narumi, who started to perform a long series of hand signs, Futon Great Breakthrough. Narumi said as she exhaled a large gust of wind at the Hyuga, who jumped out of the way just in time to dodge the attack. Neji charged forward again and attempted to block Narumi's chakra points. Just as he was about to strike her, she substituted herself with a chunk for the wall that had broken off during the other fights. Neji, using Byakugan, knew where she was the second she reappeared. Neji shot at the blonde Kunoichi. Narumi wasn't able to dodge in time and got hit on the side of her left arm. Narumi jumped away so as to not get another point blocked. Neji smirked when he saw the Uzumaki grab her arm in pain. "Does it hurt, girls? You can't fight against fate, and your fate is to lose by my hands," Neji said as he came at Narumi, who used some of the Kyuubi's chakra inside of her to reopen her chakra point before dodging the Hyuga's attack. In the stands, Hinata was glaring down at Neji. "Neji, I swear if you hurt her, I will rip off your balls and shove them down your throat," the Hyuga heiress thought to herself as she watched the battle. She then glared at Naruto, who was watching the battle calmly without any sign of emotion showing through. "And I will get my Naru-chan back from you, bastard," she thought as she glared at the man who took the heart of the one she loved. Naruto could sense the Hyuga's glare on him. It really was a shock how different this Hinata was compared to his world's Hinata. This one was a tsundere like he had never seen before. She was cold and harsh to everyone minus his female counterpart, who she was in love with. "It seems that Kami loves to fuck with me," Naruto thought as he looked over at the blue-haired girl. His eyes turned to Madara's Sharingan for a split second before he went back to watching the battle. Narumi used the Shadow Clone Jutsu to create 25 copies of herself. The 25 copies charged at the Hyuga, who tensed and waited for all of them to get close to him. Once they all were within range, the pale-eyed teenager started to spin rapidly, 8 trigrams palm rotation. Neji said as he was engulfed in a large blue dome of chakra. All the clones were blasted back and dispersed from the blow. Narumi charged up a Rasengan and charged at the Hyuga, who had just finished rotating. "Rasengan," she yelled as she approached the brown-haired teen. However, the Hyuga's reflexes kicked in and he managed to dodge the attack mostly, but the band holding his ponytail was shredded, letting his hair loose. Before Narumi could do anything, Neji was already in his stance. "Fate has brought both of us to this moment, Namikaze-san. You are in my field of division, 8 trigrams 64 palms," Neji announced, much to the surprise of Hinata, who knew that the 64 palms was only taught in the main branch. 2 palms, Neji said as he delivered the first 2 strikes. 4 palms, 2 more hits. 8 palms, 4 more strikes were delivered. 16 palms, Neji said as he delivered another set of 8 strikes to Narumi's body. 32 palm. 64 palm, Neji said as he struck Narumi another 32 times before finishing with a 2-handed thrust which sent Narumi flying against the wall of the building. Hinata was visually furious at what her cousin had done to the girl she loved. Neji relaxed a bit as he started to walk back towards the stairs. "She's already down. Might as well call the match because she isn't getting back up," Neji said with a smug look. "I'm not done yet," Narumi said as she stood back up with a red aura surrounding her. Her canines elongated and her nails became sharper as her eyes turned red with slits for pupils. Naruto narrowed his eyes when he saw this. He didn't expect his lover to have to pull out the Kyuubi this early on in the exams, but he could see why. Neji was also stronger now than he was in his world. He already had the rotation and 64 palms this early. "Well, this match is over," Naruto thought as he let out a sigh. Before Neji could react, he was punched in the jaw by the enraged blonde. "Fate doesn't decide what happens in my life. I'll decide what happens," Narumi yelled as she charged at the downed Hyuga, who was getting back up from the powerful punch. He had a small trail of blood coming from his mouth. Neji was able to stand back up on his feet and readied himself for Narumi's attack. As the blonde got close enough to the pale-eyed teen, started to rotate rapidly once more. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki saw what was going to happen and tried to stop, But she was too late, and her momentum carried her into the side of the dome, which blasted her back. Narumi stood back once more with her clothes shredded, but still able to hide her modesty from everyone. "I'm not done yet," she said, as a small trail of blood dripped down the middle of her face. Her entire body screamed in pain as she formed another Rasengan, but unlike the last one, this one was much bigger and had a red tint to it. "Adama Rasengan," she yelled as she charged once again at the Hyuga. Niji scowled when he saw her charging back at him. "You don't learn, do you? Fate has decided me the winner." "Rotation," Hyuga yelled as Namikaze pushed her giant Rasengan at him. The two techniques clashed with each other in a huge show of power. The sound of the two spiraling attacks grinding together echoed across the room. All the genin had to hold their ears to protect them from the piercing sound. The clash ended in an explosion of smoke. Everyone waited with bated breath as they watched the smoke slowly clear away from the scene. The first thing they saw was the shadow of a person with long hair, which at this point was distinguishable from the two fighters. As more of the dust cloud cleared, it revealed the two mounds of the standing figure's chest. The smoke completely cleared to show Narumi in rags standing over a defeated Niji whose outfit was also in rags. "Winner Narumi Uzumaki Namikaze," Hayate announced to everyone who cheered for the blonde. Seeing that his lover was going to faint, Naruto appeared beside her and caught her before she hit the floor. "You did well, Naru-chan, now rest," Naruto said as he looked over at the Sandaime, who nodded. The blonde quickly blurred out of existence with his female counterpart and made his way to the hospital within the tower to drop off Narumi and to check how Inuko and Sayuri were doing. But not before making a clone to watch the rest of the battles for him. Arriving at the large room, Naruto made his way to the empty bed beside Sayuri, who was also asleep. Naruto did a quick diagnostic jutsu on the two girls to check if there was anything wrong with them before going to check on Inuko. Much to his surprise, the Inuzuka heiress was awake already, even though she had some nasty burns. "Hey Naruto-kun," his girlfriend said weakly to him. "Hey Inu-chan. Save your strength, you're still hurt," Naruto said as he performed a healing jutsu to heal some of the burns that the medical ninja couldn't heal themselves. Inuko couldn't help but let out a small moan at the feeling that spread over her entire body as Naruto used some natural chakra to heal her. Naruto frowned when he saw that he couldn't heal all her burns, which he would have to leave to heal naturally. He wasn't used to healing others, and while his chakra would heal others better than other standard medics, he still wasn't able to heal anyone on the same level which his world Sakura Tsunade could. "Sorry Inu-chan, I can't heal you anymore," Naruto said in a depressed tone. His mood was lifted when he saw the brunette smile kindly at him. It warmed his heart knowing that the girl loved him as much as he did her. "It's fine Naruto-kun, I feel much better than before now since you healed the worst of the burns," the dog girl said to the blonde, who smiled kindly. "But can you please tell me what happened to your left arm?" she asked with a tone so sweet that it promised to cause him pain if he dared to lie. Naruto sighed and started to explain what had happened during the Forest of Death and the events involving Orochimaru, and even went as far as to tell her about him being the Juubi, which she was way better than he had expected her to be. He planned on telling everyone who he felt he could trust, which included Narumi, Sayuri, Ino, Hiruzen, Jiraiya and Danzo. 3 of those were his girlfriends, while the other 3 were the village leaders. "So you don't think I'm a monster?" Naruto asked the brunette, who nodded. "Naruto-kun, centuries ago one of my ancestors mated with a dog demon which started our clan. How could I hate you for being what you are when my own clan stemmed off a demon? Besides, even if you are a Biju, you are also a great guy and the man I love," Inuko said with no small amount of affection. Naruto's eyes widened slightly before he smiled endearingly at her. "I love you too Inu-chan," Naruto said as he leaned down for a quick kiss. Inuko looked a bit embarrassed but finally worked up the courage to say what she wanted to say. "And Naruto-kun, can I ask you something?" she asked the blonde, who smiled back at her. "But you just did," Naruto said with a teasing grin. "Yeah, ask away. After I get better, could you please take me my," she started, but said the last part in a whisper which Naruto couldn't hear. Even with his super hearing, he could only hear the first sound of the word, which was a ver. "Can you say that again?" "I couldn't hear you," Naruto said as he raised an eyebrow. "I asked if you could take my virginity," she said in a hushed tone which Naruto had to strain his ears to hear. Naruto's eyes widened when he heard this. Sure, he had taken both Sayuri's and Narumi's virginity, but he had spent far more time with them than Inuko since they were on the same team but he thought that she might want to wait a while. "Sure," Naruto said with a small smile. "I would be honored to be the one to be with you," Naruto said before he heard Inuko yawn a bit. "You're still tired and injured, get some more sleep," Naruto said as he placed a small genjutsu to get her to rest some more. Walking over to his other two girlfriends, he started to heal them as best he could, which wasn't enough to get them out of the hospital until a few days later, maybe a day for Narumi. Now all he had to do was wait until they woke up so that he could talk to them about his status as Juubi. Later, Naruto stood next to the other winners of the preliminaries as they waited for the proctors. The people there were Naruto, Hinata, Samui, Gaia, Temari, Shino, Ino, and Yugito. Sayuri and Narumi were still in the tower hospital, so they couldn't be there in person, but were put together in the final match for the first round. He had thought about what had happened since Orochimaru's attack in the forest and what had happened in the preliminaries. Everyone was stronger now than in his world, even if it was only by a small margin, and that not all events were the same as he had once thought. On top of that, he being in this world was also bound to alter the series of events that would have happened. He was the one who saved Haku and Zabuza and was the one who got Danzo on his side. He also underestimated the curse mark on Sayuri and how strong it truly was. He was not going to screw up this invasion. "I will have to tell them the truth," Naruto thought to himself. "Alright, each of you will draw a number to decide who you will fight during the final round," Hayate said as he moved from Naruto, who was on the left, to the right, ending with Gaia. "3 Naruto said," Hinata announced. 2 Samui said in her normal cold tone. 4 Gaia said. 7 Temari got. 8 Ino said out loud. 5 Shino said quietly. 6 Yugito said as she held up her number. The Hokage nodded at the matches. This worked out well for them because if Naruto could knock out Gaia before she transformed, then he and Danzo wouldn't have to take on Orochimaru by themselves, since while still powerful they were old as dirt in the shinobi world, with the only one older than them being Inoki the Tsuchikage. So the matches will be Hinata Hyuga vs Samui of Kumo first, followed by Naruto Namikaze vs Gaia of Sun, then Shino Aburame vs Yugito Nai. Following them will be Ino Yamanaka vs Temari of Suna, and lastly it will be Sayuri Uchiha vs Narumi Uzumaki Namikaze. You all have a month to improve your skill, since most of you have shown some of your abilities already today. Now go and rest," Hiruzen said as they all left, with the exception of Naruto, who watched everyone else leave the 2 shinobi. "Gigi, I have something important to tell both you and the others back at the tower. I believe that with the events to come I may have to unveil the truth about myself," Naruto said as he showed the old man the stub he had in place of his arm before it started to regrow at a rapid pace, much to the surprise of the cage, until it was a new arm. It was one of the most awe-inspiring yet disgusting things the old man had ever seen, and trust him when he said he had seen some really disgusting things before, like Orochimaru's original experiments. "Naruto-kun, what did you just do?" the old man asked as he examined Naruto's new arm. "It is one of my powers that I will tell you guys about. After thinking it over after Sayuri's battle, I realized that Orochimaru in this world might do something different from the one on my own, so I believe it's best if I told you guys the truth about who and what I am now, rather than in the middle of battle. I've already told Narumi, Sayuri, and Inuko, and they thanked Kami," Naruto said as he put his coat back on, but let out a sigh when he thought about how well the 2 girls had handled it. Like Inuko, they both said that it didn't matter what he was, only who he was, and he was the man they loved. The old man nodded before the 2 left the tower in the Forest of Death and started their way to the secret meeting room in the Hokage's tower. Hokage's meeting room. In the dark room, lit only by a few candles, 5 men sat at a circular table with a map of Konoha printed on it. The 5 were Jiraiya of the Sannin, Danzo Shimura the leader of Root Anbu, the current Anbu commander, Hiruzen Sarutobi the Sandaime Hokage, and Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze the second Juubi and current Namikaze clan head. Naruto had just finished explaining just what he was and what he could do because of what he was. Saying that the 4 were shocked was an understatement. They all were dumbfounded when Naruto told them that he was really the equivalent of all the Baijas combined into a single body. They were a little wary that the blonde could destroy everyone in the village single-handedly, but knew that the blonde hadn't done anything that had hurt the village so far and reassured them that he would help them as long as they didn't turn on him. "So the plan is still going as planned?" the Anbu captain asked the others, who nodded. Then I will be off to start preparing my men for the battle to come next month. The Anmu said as he left the room through Shunshin. Naruto turned to Jiraiya. Jiraiya-san, I need you to train Narumi during the month. While she is good, she is nowhere near the level needed to take on Gaia or Temari. Naruto said to the white-haired sage who nodded. The Jinchuriki was good, but she wasn't even close to the level of the Akatsuki members or Orochimaru. Will do, Naruto-kun. Jiraiya said with a large smirk as he started to plan about what he should teach his student's daughter. I'll teach her some new jutsu and some physical stuff. The white-haired man said. Naruto nodded, but then glared at the pervert, but if I find out that you wasted her time peeking on girls, I'll beat the perverseness out of you. Naruto threatened the sage who nodded. One did not anger the strongest being in the world, it was a stupid idea to do so. What will you be doing during the month? Danzo asked the blonde Biju who looked at the bandaged man. I will be with my girls for the first week and then out of the village for the last 2 weeks for some special training that I can't do inside the village. Naruto answered the cage's question. The four continued to finalize the plans for the defense and counter-attack for the battle that would come. 1 week later, Naruto was walking side by side with Inuko as they walked towards her house in the Inuzuka compound. She had been cleared to leave the hospital today and was finally cashing in on Naruto's promise to take her virginity. Naruto laid on Inuko's bed stark naked as he watched his girlfriend strip right in front of him. Inuko was now only in a tan thong and a bra which was barely large enough to hold her large C-cups. Inuko turned back to Naruto with a seductive grin which grew larger when she saw little Naruto standing at attention. Oh, does my Narukoi like what he sees? She said as she crawled over him showing him a heavenly amount of cleavage. Her thin panties were soaked already and the two hadn't even started. I don't want any foreplay, so let's get to the real deal. She said before ripping off the tiny bit of fabric to reveal her dripping twat. Not even giving Naruto a chance to say anything, she slammed down her hips. Inuko let out a loud howl when she felt Naruto's prick pierced her hymen. A bit of blood dripped out from her lower folds, but Inuko didn't care about the pain, but rather the mind-numbing pleasure that was coursing through her entire body. She finally felt complete now that she had found her mate. Are you okay, Inuko? Naruto asked when he saw tears starting to form in her eyes. Inuko smiled down at him as she wiped away the tears. Yes, I am Narukoi. It's just that I'm so happy that I finally found my mate. Inuko said, smiling kindly at the blonde under her. In our family, once a male has sex with a woman with the exception of rape, it is the same as marriage. This marriage can only be broken if one of the two dies or one betrays the clan like my father did. She said as her joy faltered when she remembered how crushed her mother was after her father left them. Naruto saw Inuko's smile fall a bit when she talked about her father. Don't worry, Inuko-chan, I'll never leave you. Naruto said as he placed his hands on her hips while the dog girl lifted her hips. Are you ready? Naruto asked the girl who smirked. Naruto guided her hips as she slammed down on him. The sound of flesh slapping against flesh echoed across the room. The moans of pleasure filled the room as the two animals went at it like dogs in heat. It wasn't long before Inuko's moans turned into howls of pleasures. Her eyes were wide and glazed over from the intense feeling within her. Her tongue hung out of her gaping mouth, giving her a fucked stupid look. Looking down at Naruto, she leaned forward and captured his lips in a sloppy kiss that showed how little control she had left over her body. All she could think about right now was pleasing herself and her lover. Naruto grunted as she spent her movements, not wanting to be outdone. He used his Jinten to increase his own trust. Harder, Narukoi. Fuck me faster. She cried out as her breast bounced within their restraint. Naruto smirked as he reached up and ripped the bra right off her body. Naruto grabbed her left breast with his right hand while he brought the right one into his mouth. Inuzuka let out another howl as Naruto started to suck on her light pink nipple. With his hand, Naruto gave the boob a massage that sent Inuko even deeper into the madness known as pleasure. Yes, twist my nipples. Inuko screamed out as Naruto pinched and pulled on her nipple. Inuko had a massive orgasm, finally letting out all the tension that had been building up in her. Inuko's mind was already turning to mush as the two went at it. Naruto knew his limit was coming as his trusts now increased in speed and power. With a loud grunt, Naruto shot his load of baby batter into the girl's womb. Inuko slumped forward onto Naruto's broad chest with a bit of saliva pouring out of her mouth onto it. Inuko couldn't think of a single moment in her life that had felt better than this day. Getting up on her knees, she kissed Naruto again, but with much more control than before. "That was amazing," Naruto Inuko whispered into his ear. "Let's do it again." Az turned around and showed Naruto her plum pass. "This is my clan's specialty. The doggy style," she said as sweat dripped from her naked body. Naruto smirked as he got on his knees and aligned his rehardened rod with her slit and pushed into her. Inuko gasped as Naruto started to fuck her. Compared to the last time, this was a million times better. Naruto pounded her without restraint. They were so into their activities that they didn't notice the figures sneak into the room. "Look at this Hana-chan," a female voice said as Inuko's mom Tsume walked forward. Naruto looked up at the clan head of the Inuzukas, who walked into the room with her older daughter Hana behind her. Both were completely naked and smelled of lust. "It's been almost 15 years since I was with a man, and Hana here is already of age and still single, and if she hadn't heard Inuko's cries of pleasure, I would have worried that she would never marry," Tsume said as she got on the large bed and placed her twat in front of her youngest daughter's face. "Eat me out, bitch," Tsume commanded her daughter. Inuko didn't even fight back as she started to lick the hole she came from. Tsume moaned lightly as she felt her daughter eating out of her. Hana moved next to Naruto and captured his lips. While Naruto had been a little conflicted at first, he took it in stride. Inuko was too into the sex to care that her mother and sister had joined in. Naruto continued to thrust into Inuko before making 2 shadow clones. The 2 clones went around and got behind the 2 older Inuzukas. The first clone dug his manhood deep into Hana's hole, causing her to break the makeout session she had going with the real Naruto to let out a scream as her hymen was ripped. When the other clone got behind Tsume, he noticed that Inuko was keeping Tsume's twat busy, so he went for the next best thing. Plunging into her ass, Naruto's clone almost blew his load right there from how tight it was. The Inuzuka clan's head wasn't any better as her eyes snapped open as her ass was stretched by Naruto's rod. This was her first time getting fucked up the ass, and the Naruto clone wasn't going to wait for her. Tsume cried out in both pain and pleasure as Naruto drilled right into her ass. It was like nothing she had ever felt before. It was both amazing but painful, like nothing she had ever felt. "Ah. That's it, Naruto. Bang me like that," Tsume cried out as she was fucked up the anus by the blonde demon. Naruto grinned evilly and used Jinten to go even faster. Hana was also having the time of her life as the Naruto clone fucked her just as hard as her mother was getting. Unlike before, she had now fully embraced her feral side and started to lose control, almost like her younger sister had just before. The entire compound could hear the cries of pleasures coming from the main house as Naruto rocked the worlds of the 3 Inuzuka royalty. Every human and ninja dog looked at the house where the cries, moans, and howls of pleasures. Lucky dog, the men of the clan thought, as they knew who it was who was with their leaders and future leaders. Back with Naruto, they 4 had changed their positions. Now Tsume was on her back on the bed with her legs spread wide open while Naruto fucked her and claimed her as one of his mates. Hana sat on top of her mother's face and made out with her sister while Naruto ate Inuko out. Tsume was eating Hana out while a clone butt fucked Hana. Naruto's clone plowed into Hana's anus while groping her large D cups. Tsume's breasts were bouncing as round wildly as Naruto pounded into her and filled her up several times over, as well as the other 2. "Yes. I'm your bitch now," Tsume yelled out as Naruto rammed into her. She was loving the power that he was putting behind each and every single thrust. "Harder. Faster," Hana howled out as Naruto ripped through her ass. She no longer felt pain from it, but only pure pleasure. Her mind, like her sister's and mother's, were now completely focused on sex. He hoped that none of them were pregnant. He wasn't ready to be a father yet, and who knew what would happen when he fought the Akatsuki again. Imagination. Naruto and Pain clashed together as both let loose their Shinra Tensei and blasted each other back. Before Naruto could charge at Pain again, he felt a tug on his pants. Looking down, he saw a feral-looking boy with blonde hair and brown eyes. "Daddy, I made poop," the child said to his father. Pain looked at the scene awkwardly before starting to chuckle before he erupted in laughter. He hit him, and the rest of the Akatsuki came up behind him and started to laugh at him, even Itachi, as he was forced to retreat to change his son. Real world. Naruto shuddered at the thought. The 4 eventually changed so that Hana and Inuko were a dog position, making out while Naruto and a clone fucked both of their pussies raw. Both of the girls had a constant stream of love juices coming out from their womanhood as Naruto further proved himself to be their god in bed. Soon was a bit away having an entire orgy by herself. She had a Naruto clone fucking her ass, while another fucker her twat. She was giving another clone a blowjob, while another fucked her large tits. Her arms weren't without use, as she had two other clones' handjobs. She was no longer Tsume, head of Inuzuka, but rather Tsume the Juubi's bitch, as she started to call herself after Naruto, and Inuko told them the entire story. The four had been going at it for 4 hours now, and were getting tired from the constant sex. Naruto had already had about 10 orgasms between himself and the clones. Each of the girls had even more than Naruto. That day Naruto proved to everyone that he wasn't just a war god, but a sex god as well. He also further solidified in the minds of many that he was Minato because he was known for the same thing before he got married to Kushina. Naruto laid next to the three girls who had started to refer to themselves as the Juubi's bitches since bitch meant female dog and in turn was not a derogatory term within the clan with their mates. Next day, Naruto limped out of the Inuzuka compound and made his way back home to pack for a trip to Kaminari no Kuni. After the meeting with Hiruzen, Danzo, and Jiraiya, Naruto got the idea to negotiate with the Raikage to get him to help out during the invasion. From his time in Kaminari no Kuni he knew that they had a lack of wood for fires during the winter and much of the village had to suffer from the cold. He was sure that he and the Raikage could come to a deal at the right price. And also the fact that he was a primordial god also gave him a backup plan if needed. The third Hokage had already agreed to Naruto's plan and had made Naruto the official negotiator between the villages. He didn't have to say bye to Narumi or Sayuri since both had already left to train with Jiraiya or Kazumi. After getting everything he needed he waited for his temporary teammates, Genma and Yamato. The three were to head for the Land of Lightning and make contact with a squad of Kumo Jounin who would take them to the village. "Hey there Namikaze-sama," Gemma said as he calmly walked towards the blonde. Gemma had brown, shoulder-length hair which hung about his face and brown eyes. He wore his forehead protector like a bandana and the standard Jonin outfit and had his trademark senbon in his mouth. "Genma-san, please just call me Naruto," the blonde said with a smile. The blonde was currently wearing his long-sleeve white haori which split into 10 tails at the waist. He wore black Anbu-style pants and a long-sleeve shirt. "Yamato isn't able to come with us, he was requested by Jiraiya Dono to help with Narumi's training," Gemma said to the Biju who nodded. "That's alright, this will be an easy mission anyways." A few days later in Kaminari no Kuni, Naruto and Gemma had finally arrived in the mountainous village after several days of travel. They were greeted at the border of the country by the squad of Kumo Jounin. Now Naruto and Genma were on their way to speak with the leader of the village. Naruto had to admit that the village was quite nice when it wasn't in the middle of war. "We're here," one of the Jounin said as they arrived at the largest building in the village. Naruto nodded and entered the metal building. "Excuse me, do you have an appointment with Raikage-sama?" the receptionist asked the two shinobi. "Yeah, we're here for the negotiations between the lead and the cloud. I am Naruto Namikaze, I represent the Hokage in the matter," Naruto said in an even tone. In these kinds of situations he had to stay calm and not let the other group get an edge in the negotiations. "Here you are," the woman said as she pulled out a card. "He'll be with you in a second," she finished as she left to inform the Raikage that the Konoha negotiators had arrived. Naruto and Genma waited a bit before they heard a loud crash. Both were on guard when the receptionist came back down sweating bullets. "The Raikage will now see you." Naruto and Genma walked to where the lady had told them the office was to find a large hole next to the door. I looked at them through the hole. "Are the two of you just going to stand there all day? Come in, you can use the hole if you want," he said before he started to curl. It was a large dark-skinned man with hulking muscles. He had combed back nearly blonde hair with a small mustache and beard and pronounced cheekbones. He wore his Raikage haori leaving his chest out for display. "So the two of you want to negotiate with me, huh? Well, tell me what you're offering," I said as he continued to curl the weight. Naruto nodded and summoned a scroll. "This scroll has the terms of the deal. In exchange for Kumo's support during Orochimaru's attack on my village, Konoha will supply Kumo with a substantial amount of firewood and other flora and fruits that are found within the fire country. Your village will also gain a generous monetary reward." Naruto went over the terms of the deal. I read over the scroll and checked to make sure that there were no hidden terms that would put his village at a what he could see there were none, so he had Mabui check just to make sure. There are no hidden parts of the deal, what they said was true. Mabui informed her leader. And nodded slowly and turned to Naruto. We will accept these terms, but something else has brought my attention. Said, as he took out a scroll from his Haori. A few days ago, one of my best shinobi, Killer B, informed me that you are special. Said, as he gave Naruto the scroll. Genma-san, please go wait back at the tower entrance, Naruto said, as his eyes gained a new serious undertone. His voice no longer held the warmth if, once had, Naruto had gotten serious. The bandana-wearing shinobi nodded and left the room. Naruto looked at Mabui. Does she know? The Raikage nodded, yes, she has my absolute trust. After all, she is my wife. Said with a wide smirk as she smacked Mabui in the ass. The brunette blushed deeply and hit A over the head before storming out of the room. Nice catch, huh? I asked with a light chuckle. I'd say so. I recently took the hand of the Inuzuka clan head Tsume and her two daughters Hana and Inuko at the same time. Naruto said with his own smirk. Good job, kid. Said as he nodded sagely. Naruto had to say that this world's A was way better than his world. This A was still serious, but knew how to be a guy unlike the A back, where he was from, who was a prude to the highest degree. But back to business, while the fact that you are either the new Juubi or Rakudo-senin does worry me, I have thought of a way to benefit both of us and your village. The Raikage said, as he took out a scroll. What's this? Naruto said, as he opened the scroll. It is a treaty between our villages. It will lower tariffs and tax rates between trade from one village to another, allow for missions to be carried out with shinobi from both villages, and a pact which, if one of our villages gets into a war, the other will assist the other. That outlined the terms of the treaty. Furthermore, to solidify the treaty, Kumo will offer you Samui, Karui, and Yugito Nai as your wives. They are to show how much trust I'm putting on you, since all three are like daughters to me. So do you accept it? Do they know about this? Naruto asked since he didn't want to force others to marry him. And nodded, yes, they were informed and agreed to it. They will stay in your village as permanent Kumo shinobi stationed there and will be wed to you. So do you accept the terms? Naruto nodded and shook the large man's hand and much to A's surprise managed to match him in physical strength. It's been nice doing business with you, A Dono. Naruto said with a deep bow and picked up the two scrolls which A had signed for him. Let out a loud laugh, you might as well start calling me A Towson since you'll be married to my three adoptive daughters soon. Naruto smiled before walking back to Genma in the waiting room. Ready? Genma asked. Yeah, let's just use Hiraishin to go back. Naruto said as he grabbed Genma's shoulders as vanished in a split second. Back in A's office, the hulking man looked out his window at the village. I hope you can protect them, Naruto-san. Especially Yuji Oto with what's to come. A thought to himself before going back to his paperwork. Thanks for watching my video, leave a like if you enjoyed my video and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. If you want the next part of this story, let me know in the comment box. See you next time, till then sayonara.